Hey, Steven here, Gear Stuff and Things. Today on the channel, we are going to be comparing some Fishman Fluence pickups. More specifically, 4 bridge position humbuckers, all on the first voicing. All 4 guitars are going to be tuned to drop A flat, and it's going to be the same riff compared through the clean section, and then one riff compared through the dirty section. For the tone examples, we're using the Gojira plugin, so all the guitars are using the same clean patch with the levels matched. All of the guitars are going to use the same dirty patch from the Gojira plugin with the levels matched. In between the cleans and the dirties, I'm going to give you my perspective on these pickups, how I think they differ from one another, my thoughts on them overall, and then I'll do the same thing at the end after the dirty section, and then I'll tell you a little bit about my experience with Fishman as a whole. So let's head on over there, wherever there is, because for some reason in YouTube videos, we have to say we're heading over somewhere when we cut to another thing. I'm not sure why that is, because I'm not really going anywhere. My camera is going to move about a foot, but it won't matter to you because it's just going to be still images of pickups because I'm fucking lazy. So let's go. Hey, you want to talk about what you just heard? I want to talk about it. Maybe I'll tell you what I think. Because I came from wherever that other place was. So now that I'm back, we should talk about it. Anyway, so that was the cleans. And to my ears, the Will Adler set has a bit more of an upper mid-range spike happening there. There's a little bit more attack. It does seem to have a bit of a mid drop. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I'm not going to put up an EQ analyzer or anything like that because I don't think any of that shit ultimately matters. I see a lot of people do that in comparison videos. It's kind of a waste of time. It's just about how you hear it because that's the part that you're going to give a shit about, not what, me pulling up Pro Q3 and analyzing all of the peaks and valleys of things. That's irrelevant. It's what sounds best to you. So to me, this particular pickup, the Will Adler, has a bit of a more defined upper mid-range. The Stephan Carpenter has a bit more of a defined lower mid-range as well as a nice little lift in the highs. So there's some sparkle there as well as a little bit of lower mid-range oomph in there. It is my favorite sounding one out of all of them, which is interesting because the first time I ever played one of these pickups, the first time I ever played a Fishman pickup in general was a Stephan Carpenter, and I didn't care for it at the time, but it's kind of growing on me, and I wish they would just make the 6-string version of it again so I could put it in all of my guitars. That's neither here nor there. Moving on, the Alnico, similar to the Stephan Carpenter to some degree, but it also has some characteristics that are fairly similar to the Adler. Now, these are all kind of based around the Fluence originally, from what I understand, and then they do some EQ shifting and stuff to change the voicings. And since we're only using voice 1 on all of these, they're not that different. However, there's some EQ variables there. But with the Alnico, I would say it's a nice mix between what you would find the signature characteristic of those previous two pickups to be if they were like kind of combined. And then moving on to the ceramic just sounds great. It's very balanced. There's a little bit of that sparkle that was present in the Stephan Carpenter pickup, and some of that low mid stuff that was kind of unpleasant, or not want to say unpleasant, but just a little weird on the Alnico is not as present in the ceramic. The clean example is going to be a lot better to listen to in reference to actually get a feeling for how different these are, because once we go into high gain territory, it gets a little harder to distinguish which is which. Don't worry, I'm along for the ride. I'll come back, probably doing something weird and creepy, and then I'll tell you how I feel about the dirty sounds, and then we'll wrap the video up. You just heard the dirty samples. Dirty samples. And you're not going to fail your drug test. It was a bad joke. Anyway, let's talk about distorted guitars and comparing them. So, kind of the same vibe, really. The Will Adler has a bit more of that upper mid-range bite. It definitely adds some attack. And I would say if you're someone who's playing more busy or aggressive metal stuff, or something that's fairly intricate with a lot of technical picking stuff, the Will Adler might be ideal for you. Stephan Carpenter, that added low end that's in there, and especially in the lower mid stuff that's happening, adds a nice growl, in my opinion, or at least what I hear as a nice growl to the pickup and to the notes and stuff that the Adler did not have. The Alnico, same kind of thing. It's got some interesting characteristics and an upper mid-range growl thing, but not as defined and, let's say, bassy as the Stephan Carpenter. Moving into the ceramic, it's just a nice, even example of each of these prior pickups. So my take is, if you're looking for something to get into the dirty world, any of these is going to work. Unfortunately, the Stephan Carpenter only comes in 7 and 8 string sets. So if you're wanting it on a 6, good fucking luck. It would be really cool if they brought it back, because I would legit buy all of them and put them in all of my guitars. All right, so now that we've heard some examples and I've talked a little bit about what I hear as far as differences between each of the pickups, I wanted to tell you kind of the story behind what led me to the Fluence Modern stuff, or the Fluence line of pickups. And it kind of starts with me not having any sort of interest in active pickups at all. I grew up playing mostly passive stuff. I've owned a few guitars that had EMGs in them, and I didn't really gel with them, and I'd immediately take those out and put a JB in them, or put a D180 from GFS in them. Those are my favorite pickups in the passive world in general. I just find them to be the most natural sounding, the most balanced. But the reality of it is, thousands of people use EMGs. There are so many records that have been recorded using them. So many great players have signature lines with EMG, and it's just clearly there's nothing wrong with them. It's just not something that appealed to me. And that assumption that they were only for like super high gain metal stuff created a preconception that led me not to have any interest in them or really even try them. To be clear, I'm sure if I tried them today, I probably feel different about them. I still know that there's certain things about them characteristically that doesn't jive with me. The Fluence stuff was, touted as an active pickup. So in my mind, and I'm sure there are many other people that did this, I assumed that it was going to be just another version of an EMG, or that EMG sound. Eventually, after I got over myself enough to actually just give them a try, I discovered that they don't have that sound at all. Now, you can get an active sound out of them, but it's still not the EMG sound. I played the Fluence Modern Ceramic, and it had a lot of tonal characteristics that were quite similar to the JB and the D180 that I use, but kind of just amplified and much more balanced across the string set. So if I'd play a chord, everything would be really even, and I could hear everything in definition. Even on slightly more high gain or fuzzed out stuff, I can still hear every note very clearly. Sometimes with the passive pickups, even if I'm like doing a chord, you're going to get some, I don't know, mud, but just a little bit of inconsistencies. Maybe something's not going to pop out quite the way you want it to. And that really shows itself when you're recording, especially when you have to like go back and overdub because there's slight inconsistencies. Now, I didn't find that with the ceramic Fluence Modern. It was just all there right at the surface. And that was enough for me to be like, okay, these are legit. And they have the dual voicing thing, and that's all cool and whatnot. But I found just the first voicing does it for me. The other selling point for me was that I have a lot of guitars. And in my band, Modern Witchcraft, we have started using two different tunings. And I found that I was going from a guitar that had a passive pickup to the guitar that had the Fishman in it. And I had to make big adjustments in my modeler, which I'm using the Quad Cortex. At the time I was using the Helix, but I'd have to make adjustments to the EQ curve, as well as like put some boosts on it, different gain staging, and a different gate setting with the passive pickup than the Modern. And I found that when I put another Modern in the other guitar, I didn't have to do that anymore. Even if I have two guitars with the same passive pickup, there can be output variables and tonal variables that are much more defined than if I'm using the Fluence. They're just going to sound the same every time. And I think that may be the true advantage of the Modern Star, the Fluence product, is that you're not getting variables, because two pickups that are wound are still, even if they're wound the same, they still are going to be slightly different. If you've played two guitars that have two of the same passive pickup in them, sometimes they're going to sound a little different. The Fluence stuff is the same. Every one of them I've used, always the same. Like out of the box, the moment it's installed, does exactly what I want it to. I'm not having to make changes to my patches. So that was it for me. That's what sold me on it. In full disclosure, this is not a sponsored video. No one at Fishman is asking me to do anything. I will say that I have a nice working relationship with them. They don't give me anything, so nothing was free or anything of the sort. But if I have questions, the fine folks over there have been really nice about asking questions. Shout out to Kevin White for just being amazing. And of course, Ken Susi for kind of introducing me to the pickups. I'm sold. And if you're someone out there who isn't a fan of EMGs, and you're coming from passive world, and you're at all curious, I'd say just give them a shot. And if you don't dig them, you don't dig them. But it's worth giving something new a chance. And that's what I'm doing today. Filming without a microphone, using a terrible LED light that's in the distance. It kind of makes this look like a shitty horror movie. And yeah, I'm doing it just down and dirty, as Nick Hill would say. And I said a handful of times. So this is going to be fun for him to make another video. Either way, it's been me. It's always you. It's Gear Stuff and Things, Fishman pickup comparison. Until next time, bye-bye. I don't know why I said it like that.